I am very excited to be joined right now by the one, the only Patricia Gordon. Patricia Gordon is one of many people who will be coming to the nation's capital between May 15th to the 24th for the Empire Strips Back, a burlesque parody. And I'm very excited to talk to her about her career and this show. Patricia, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Keith.
Absolutely. Now, listen, we are going to get into what is, I'm sure, going to make many Star Wars fans, many burlesque fans, many dance fans very excited about this show. But before we get to that, I want to talk about you. Your story is very fascinating to me. Born and raised in Sudbury, Ontario.
Yes.
You've lived in Toronto. You've lived in New York. You've been dancing since the age of 3. Many dance competitions across North America. So obviously this all starts with a passion for dance. So I'd like to ask, like, where did that come from? Like, especially at such a young age. And this is something that wasn't just like, mom and dad, I want to learn guitar, and you pick it up for a couple of weeks and then you move on to something else. You've been consistently doing this for the majority of your life. So I'm very interested to know where this passion for dance came from.
So yeah, I'm the first dancer in my family. No one's ever danced before in my family, but as a true Canadian gal growing up, I was inspired by Lunette the Clown, if you remember that TV show. She used to do this like leg grab thing around the clock, and I saw it one day and I said, "Mom, I want to do that." And yeah, I asked to be put in dance when I was 3 years old because I saw Lunette the Clown. And yeah, that's how it started. And my parents have always been really supportive, as well as my family.
Mhm.
And anytime that I wanted to stop, my mom would be like, just tell me and we can take you out. But I never told her, and here I am. So still doing it.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Now, as again, before we get into the show, like, what are some of the moments from early on in your career that really stand out to you, whether it be like auditions or competitions or things of that nature? Because I have spent a bit of time with some of the cheerleaders here in Ottawa with the Red Blacks cheer and dance team, and we've documented that here on Ottawa Life magazine. I always say I wish I had gotten into gymnastics early just because of the flexibility and the strength and that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering, like I understand that dance is something that takes a lot of technique and coordination. Not to say that, your guy here can't dance, but we're, different levels. But I am very curious in terms of, like, are there certain moments from earlier on in your career that really stand out for you in terms of uh, particular auditions or previous shows that you were a part of?
Hmm. Yeah, so for me growing up, I came up through the dance competition circuit, which some
Okay.
people do, some people don't. But me, so I've always been, I'm really tall. I'm like 5'9", 5'10". So growing up, I wasn't the most coordinated. It took me a lot of time to like learn how to use my body and what I had because I'm really tall and really flexible, which means that you also have to be really strong. So growing up in competition, I wasn't always the best in terms of like ranking and scoring, but I always got remembered, which what mattered to me. Because for me, I didn't really like the competition part of dancing. I liked the performance part. So when I'd go to competition, my mindset wasn't to be in first place. It was to perform for people and to be remembered. And that's what would happen. I wouldn't necessarily get like first place solo, but I'd get a special award and the judges would say, "Oh, I remember you." And to this day, some judges that saw me growing up in competition are still my mentors and still my friends to this day. So that really stands out to me. And yeah, in terms of auditions, oh my goodness, there's been so many. But I'd say my first ever audition, like formal one I did was for an agency when I was in New York. And technically I was not allowed to go because I had a visa, but not the right visa. But
Okay.
I made it all the way to the end, which is like a really big deal. And that stood out to me and like enforced in my mind, like, okay, you can do this because not only are you in a different country, you don't have the right paperwork, you made it to the end. And that's a big deal. So yeah, that was like the first time I was like, okay, I could see myself doing this, and that just proved it.
Amazing, amazing. So one of the things from that answer that tells me is that you play well in the sandbox. So with that in mind, you're going to be part of an ensemble coming here to Ottawa. Approximately how many performers are in the show?
So there's 10 performers in the show, and we have one understudy, but there's 8 female presenting performers and 2 male presenting performers.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So now let's take a step back. Tell me, now this is a first of all, this is a show that is traveling the world, and that is
Mhm.
not an exaggeration. We're talking Europe, we're
No.
talking Australia, we're talking all over the States, we're talking all over Canada. So the Empire Strips Back. a burlesque parody. Tell the good people. I mean, it kind of sounds self-explanatory, but regardless, tell the good people what that's about.
So yes, it's a pun on the movie of Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. Very clever. But yes, it's a burlesque parody of Star Wars. The first three episodes, to be specific. If it was all of Star Wars universe, we'd be there all night, probably all week. But yeah, the first three episodes, and yeah, as burlesque is to not to make fun of, but it is a parody. So you're gonna expect a lot of laughs,
Mhm.
a lot of entertainment. The costume, the production, like the set pieces are insane. And yeah, it's 2 hours with an intermission, but it's entertaining the entire time. And there's lots of action, there's lots of, more somber moments. We switch up the vibe because if we're at 100 all the time, then that's a lot. So we switch it up. But yeah, just expect a good time, lots of laughs, and some amazing performers.
No, absolutely. I've always had the utmost respect for burlesque in terms of like the choreography and what have you. And I always thought it was something very entertaining. I've seen different burlesque shows in my time, and I'm looking forward to this one. Here's the interesting thing. We are having this conversation. The hope is to get people excited about this show, but in all honesty, I think we're already there. Several of the shows have been sold out here in Ottawa. There's limited ticket availability in terms of the remaining shows that haven't been sold out. So the response is huge. I have different groups of friends who have different interests, and one of the commonalities right now is that everybody seems to be excited for this show. So obviously there's a huge turnout for it. But what are some of the comments that you get from people who've seen the show in terms of the feedback that they've given to you?
Well, what's really cool about the audience is that it's so diverse in terms of like
Yeah.
age range, like different people that come, because some people are huge Star Wars fans, some people are burlesque fans, but the most, I'd say, popular comment we get is that's not what I was expecting. I don't know what people were expecting. You'd think Star Wars and burlesque, it's like pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, a lot of people say I didn't think that's not what I expected, and it was so much better than what I thought it was going to be. Not that they thought it would be bad, but just the production level and what we bring is so top tier. So people are always just taken aback by how good it was.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm again, I think the initial response it's like, "Oh, it's coming back," and people are excited because this has been a show that's been on, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least 5 years. This isn't something that's just brand new to 2024. This is something that's been going on for
No.
a good amount of time.
Yeah, so it actually started in Australia in like 2014, I believe. So it's been a while.
Okay.
And yeah, it came to the States. Obviously, they did it on Australia forever, then it came to the States, and then we are the first Canadian cast to do it. So it did come to Canada. We're the first Canadian cast to do it, but it did come to Canada in about 2017, I believe, because a lot of people that come to the Toronto show and now the Montreal show were like, oh, I saw this in 2017 or 2018, and I had to come see it again. But at that time, it was a different cast that was doing it, but our show is the first time they casted all Canadians to do this show. So that's really special. For the first time, it's actually all people that are from, most of us are from Toronto doing this show.
Okay. Oh, I
Yeah.
like how you say most of us. You're from Sudbury. Settle down.
I am,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I have to ask this question. Before you
Mhm.
got involved with this show, were you a Star Wars fan?
Um, to be quite honest, like a general fan, I watched them
Okay.
growing up. I wasn't a super fan, but I did
Okay.
know, I'd say I knew like probably the most out of not all of us. Some girls are bigger Star Wars fans, but I had a really general understanding. A lot of my good friends are also in the arts. One of my good friends, Leland Mitchell, he's a costume designer and he's really into cosplaying. So actually last year at this time, it's about to be May 4th, I did a Star Wars cosplay party and I was Padme.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he was like, "Can you do it like as a favor?" So and then he bought me a Padme action figure, and then I auditioned for this show. So it was a really full circle moment. But yeah, I've always known of Star Wars. I know all the iconic references. Like you really have to be living under a rock not to know. So yeah, but my appreciation for Star Wars has definitely grown, and I'd say I'm a bigger fan now.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay. We're gonna drift into a little something I like to call rapid fire questions here. So
Okay.
as I ask the question, just first thing that comes to your mind, these are meant to be fun. Just fire it at me, all right? And we'll go from there. So this first question, and this does not have to be a Star Wars movie, by the way, but what is your favorite movie of all time? And if you can't give me one, I will accept the top three.
Oh my God, of all time?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so hard. Mm, I'll give you a typical dancer answer.
Sure.
It was filmed in Toronto, but Honey with Jessica Alba.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
probably
no.
yeah,
There is
favorite of all time.
there is
Yeah.
no right or wrong answers in rapid fire unless you say the
Okay.
notebook, unless you say the notebook. Okay, moving on.
No.
Do you have a favorite or least favorite Star Wars movie?
Um, no, because I think they're all important into telling the overall story. So I'd say no.
That is a
I don't
solid
find,
answer.
yeah, you know what I mean? They all play a part in the overall story. So no, I can't say that I don't have a least favorite one.
Okay, fair. Is there a choreographer? You've worked with a lot of people. If I started listing the amount of people that you've worked with, we'd be here for a long time. But is there a choreographer that you haven't worked with yet that you would like to?
I mean, I'd love to work with Fatima Robinson. She's a creative director. She just did the Renaissance World Tour. She danced for Michael Jackson, Aaliyah. Like, she's legendary, and I have not. I've met her, and I've been able to take class from her, which I'm honored by. But I have not worked for her, so I would love to work for her one day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say is the biggest misconception about burlesque?
A lot of people think burlesque, not a lot, but if you don't know, you assume that burlesque is like stripping. And not to say that stripping isn't also a beautiful art form, but yeah, that's probably the biggest misconception, especially with our show. Even though it is a burlesque show, it's a lot more commercialized. Like we are commercial dancers doing burlesque. So I'd say that's probably the biggest misconception is that that's what it's all about, but it's not. Burlesque is about the tease. So it's about the, winding up to that moment of, oh my God, are they going to take it off? And what's the reveal going to be? So that's
Okay.
probably the biggest misconception.
Okay.
Mhm.
Dance is an absolutely beautiful thing. You mentioned Honey with Jessica Alba, throwing it back to old school. Did you
Yeah.
by any chance, this is how you know that we don't talk about what I'm going to ask you before we come on to this, but did you by any chance see the movie Magic Mike's Last Dance?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I can ask you this question. Would you
Yeah.
not agree that the water scene at the end, that water dance should have been nominated for best cinematography?
It's so good, and I don't know if you've seen the live, like Magic Mike live show,
I
because
can't say that I have, no.
yeah, they do it. I haven't seen it either, but they do it in the UK, in Vegas, obviously. I don't know if it's on Broadway, but they recreate that dance, and it's insane. So
Yeah.
yes, I absolutely agree. It should have been nominated because it's crazy in a
I
good
knew,
way.
see, I knew you would get me.
Yeah.
My last question for you. What is the advice that you would give? Because you're kind of a big deal. I know
Oh,
you're kind of like low key, chill about it, but you're clearly a big deal. And anybody who sees your resume will understand that. What would
thank
be the advice? You're very welcome. What would be the advice that you would give to emerging, aspiring dancers?
you gotta want it. That's probably the biggest advice I would give now. It's different than what I used to give, but it's you have to want it. Because you can be great, you can be an amazing dancer, but if you don't want to do this, you're not going to be successful. Because there's a million other people that are ready to take your spot at any time that want it. So that's the best advice I could give.
100%. Okay,
Yeah.
listen, I want to thank you for your time. Of course, we've been talking with big deal Patricia Gordon, who is part of the ensemble for The Empire Strips Back, a burlesque parody. We will put the link in this article so you can go and hopefully get some tickets if there's some left. May 15th to the 24th here in Ottawa, traveling the world over. Patricia, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much. I had a great time.
Excellent. You take care.
Thank you, too, Keith.